There was no email in 1988. At least, not for those collaborating on licensed Disney video games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. As the Walt Disney Company and Capcom shared ideas, test builds, and art assets, they were required to literally post documents back and forth, including game cartridges, as this was the only way to communicate what was being done on the game. As slow and awkward as this may have felt, it absolutely paid off. To this day, Capcom's Disney titles, especially their first game, DuckTales, are held up as some of the best games on the NES. A couple of months ago, the Disney Afternoon Collection finally, belatedly, made its way onto Nintendo Switch. We felt that this library of classic Capcom Disney video games would be an excellent opportunity to revisit one of the most enduring licensed video games of all time. Capcom's DuckTales, released in 1989. Although, we do have another reason for talking about this game. For months now, KOTOR has been working on his very own 8-bit video game, heavily inspired by the licensed Disney games of the 80s and 90s. Fortune and Glory wears its inspiration on its sleeve, with expressive cartoonish artwork and treasure-hunting action platforming. The game is now live on Kickstarter, both to support the conclusion of development and to fund a run of physical Game Boy Color cartridges. We'll show you some footage of the game throughout this video, and there's a link in the description that will take you straight to the Kickstarter, plus another link where you can download the game's demo. If you are in a position to support the game, please take a look at the Kickstarter and consider backing either for a digital or physical copy of Fortune and Glory. All that said, let's talk about the creation of Capcom's DuckTales, a game which can trace its roots back to some of the earliest Disney stories right back at the birth of animation and the peak popularity of comic books. This is the story of DuckTales. Woo! The 1980s were not a great time for Disney animation. The Walt Disney Corporation as a whole was undergoing a tense management battle. Cartoons had fallen down the company's priority list as they seemed out of date and increasingly irrelevant. This was all made worse when many key artists, led by Don Bluth, departed from Disney to set up their own rival studio, a studio that began making critically acclaimed films while Disney productions suffered setbacks and delays. In one instance, tasked with trying to fix the troubled production behind the scenes on the animated feature The Black Cauldron, the unpopular new overseer of Disney Animation, Jeffrey Katzenberg, insisted that they remove large portions of the film that he deemed too scary for the target audience. It didn't save the picture, which failed to recoup its production budget at the box office. It was clear that Disney needed a new direction to save its ailing animation efforts and its pantheon of recognisable cartoon characters. There was an atmosphere of change in the air, and the company began exploring business ventures that they wouldn't have considered otherwise. Chief amongst these was animation for television. Traditionally, it had seemed like a waste to create cartoons for the small screen. Budgets were simply too high and revenues too low. TV animation has been dominated by studios like Hanna-Barbera, who used every cost-cutting trick in the book to make their shows as cheaply and quickly as possible. With Disney's resources, though, the company could make shows with a far higher production value than the majority of TV animation at the time. What's more, they could rely on merchandising sales to generate profit. The relaxation of advertising laws had led many companies to succeed by effectively turning their cartoons into 20-minute adverts for their toy lines. Plus, Disney had access to a huge library of familiar characters that children recognised and cared deeply about. Except, well, it would probably be better to save the big stars, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck for example, primarily for the big screen, right? Disney's television animation team were given strict limitations as to which existing Disney characters they could use. The big players were off the table. It was felt that putting Mickey Mouse on the small screen would weaken his brand. Disney's most enduring TV success, though, came from taking an ancillary character, one who had first debuted in a Donald Duck comic book, and giving him a chance to shine on the small screen. Disney had recently created its first theatrical cartoon in 30 years, Mickey's Christmas Carol, itself an adaptation of a music album that had been released previously. Despite being named for Mickey, the short's protagonist was another legacy Disney cartoon character, Scrooge McDuck. A passion project for Alan Young, the voice of Scrooge in the cartoon, this reintroduced a generation of viewers to Disney's library of cartoon characters. In developing a new cartoon starring Scrooge, showrunner Jim Magan and his team hoped to capture a little of that excitement while mixing it with the zeitgeist's current appetite for pulpy adventure stories, which had been ignited thanks to the popular Indiana Jones films. This new project was a swashbuckling, globe-trotting, treasure-hunting cartoon called DuckTales. Television animation wasn't the only new use for classic characters that Disney was pursuing. With the rise in popularity of home computers and video game consoles, there was an opportunity to expand Disney's existing multimedia offerings to reach new households. The company was already selling digital education software and had dabbled with video games for the Atari and even the Game & Watch in the past, so expanding their entertainment software efforts was a logical next step. A big catalyst for this new development was the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit? The live-action / hand-drawn animation hybrid, which starred a pre-Mario Bob Hoskins, was pivotal in rebuilding Disney's cartoon reputation, and the company wanted to make the most of this upcoming opportunity. This meant plenty of licensing deals, Disney's merchandising bread and butter. While the game proved a bit tricky because this was a new avenue for the company, it paid off so well that Disney looked to explore this further. According to Disney producer Noah Dudley, when Who Framed Roger Rabbit did well, the idea was, let's do more of that. And it was about this time that people started coming to us and saying, well, if you need a software department, we have a software department. And you have IP, and we need IP. There were a lot of games, for example, that were out there that were making some impressive money. So our group leader, Steve Macbeth, said, let's get some of that. And he made deals with a bunch of different people. Capcom lacked a diverse portfolio. At least, that was how Capcom USA's Joe Morici saw things. While the company had already established itself with hits like Street Fighter and Mega Man, Morici felt that they needed something softer, a game that would appeal to younger, female audiences. He said, I had 2 young daughters at the time, and I thought they needed to play something besides fighting games. After seeing the success of the Who Framed Roger Rabbit game, Morici contacted Disney, asking to license some of their characters specifically for games to release on Nintendo consoles. This suited Disney very well. Console gaming seemed like a particularly difficult nut to crack, given the inherent risk involved in publishing cartridge games. Capcom was exactly the kind of partner that knew how to navigate those waters. Capcom was not, however, the only company that Disney made deals with. In 1987, Hudson Soft released Mickey Mouse Adventures in Wonderland for the Nintendo Entertainment System, a game which kicked off Disney's Nintendo console efforts in earnest. When it came time to release the game overseas, Disney turned to Capcom USA to handle publishing the game in America. When this went well, Capcom was given the chance to develop their own Disney game, DuckTales. The team that Capcom assembled for their first Disney game was a veritable who's who of the studio's top talent. Many of the key developers for the early Mega Man titles, such as director Keiji Inafune, tackled this game in between installments in the popular homegrown franchise. This entire team was flown over to Burbank in California to help immerse them in Disney's culture, as well as the aesthetics of Disney art and animation. As seasons of the DuckTales cartoon were still being produced at the time, the team was shown behind-the-scenes character sketches and artwork to help them get a sense of the show's visual style. More than anything else, Disney was insistent that the game should match their brand. Disney provided a pair of producers, first David Mullock, then, when he was needed elsewhere, Darlene Lacey, to oversee the project. Disney used a, quote, light touch producing style, letting Capcom come up with the ideas themselves and then providing a final tweak to make sure everything felt suitably Disney. According to Darlene Lacey, her personal mantra was, "They've already put a lot of great ideas into it. How can I support them by making a few little changes to make it even better? And let's get this done on time and make it as great as it can be." This meant making minor adjustments to artwork, something that was a common problem for Disney games at the time. Squeezing the most possible expression and life out of 8-bit sprites was not easy, especially because in many cases at the time, game art was being handled by programmers rather than dedicated artists. It wasn't unheard of for Lacey to try redrawing character sprites herself on these kinds of games, to try desperately to meet Disney's internal guidelines. Winning the approval of Disney Creative Services was not easy, and it often became a question of asking, what compromises do we have to make? Lacey also took a lead in reworking the game's dialogue to make it a little more, well, logical. The game was developed in English, despite the fact that the development team weren't very familiar with this language, and there were significant limitations around how much text could be included. All dialogue needed to feel like the DuckTales characters, whilst also being punchy and brief. Lacey's favourite example of something she needed to fix was the game's ending screen. She said, "Scrooge told his nephews, 'There really is more important treasure than this. That is, dream and friends.' It seemed so earnest and dramatic, I was so tempted to leave it as is, but I knew I couldn't. So I changed it to the more polished, but forgettable, 'Right lads, I couldn't have done it without you. I really am the richest duck in the world.' I love that fans found out about the original ending. It was the better line. The 'Dream and Friends' has become a cult meme among fans of the game." Carl Barks' family were not artists. They were farmers. As far as he could tell, none of his ancestors had any kind of creative inclinations whatsoever. Nevertheless, from a young age, all he wanted was to draw cartoons. In 1935, he took a gamble and sent some drawing samples to the Walt Disney Corporation, where he was promptly hired to work on their animated shorts. The work did not particularly suit Barks. He later said, "I couldn't have ever been an animator. It would have been too monotonous for me." He struggled to fit into the working environment within the story department at Disney. There was not enough opportunity to express his own creative vision. He even went so far as to blame the air conditioning for his decision to depart from the studio after only a few short years. Before he left, though, Barks worked on a comic strip, Donald Duck Finds Pirate Gold, which would not only change the course of his life, but would have major ramifications for both the comics industry as a whole, the entire Disney empire, and even impacted the future of big movie blockbusters. Having quit Disney, Barks found work as a comic artist, and discovering that his work on Donald Duck Finds Pirate Gold was proving popular, he wound up drawing a regular Donald Duck comic series. This was where Barks shone. Without the large team required for animation, he was able to let his wildest ideas flow out of him, with far more creative freedom and the opportunity to do things that would never have been possible in the stuffy Disney studio. He said, "The comic books were a tremendous field for presenting ideas and all kinds of activity and background. There's a wide range of artwork that goes into comic books." Barks was incredibly good at coming up with comic ideas and created a variety of new characters for Donald to interact with, including the miserly Uncle Scrooge, originally a one-note character dreamed up for a Christmas comic who became so popular that he earned his own spin-off comic series. Scrooge's stories were pure pulp adventure. He would travel the world in search of treasure, discovering lost cities and ancient wonders. These comics were not just popular, they inspired the next generation of creators. In particular, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, the creative duo behind basically every major blockbuster film of the 1980s, were among Barks's fans. Lucas wrote, "I grew up in a time when television was just beginning to present itself in the American living room. Prior to that, comics were my main form of home entertainment. Some of the very first comics I obtained were written by Carl Barks. My greatest source of enjoyment in Carl Barks's comics is the imagination of his stories. They're so full of crazy ideas, unique and special and bizarre. Not in the contemporary sense of bizarre, but in the sense that, to a child in the 50s, they were extremely exotic. Barks's work on the Scrooge comics went on to directly influence the Indiana Jones films, which Lucas and Spielberg made together. When, in turn, Disney brought Scrooge to television in DuckTales, there was scope to tap into latent excitement for these kinds of pulpy adventure stories by simply adapting characters and adventures from those original Carl Barks tales. DuckTales on the Nintendo Entertainment System has stood the test of time a lot better than many licensed video games from the 1980s. It is the result of many passionate people from around the world sharing and resharing their ideas and creative visions. From Carl Barks to Alan Young, George Lucas to Jim Magan, Keiji Inafune to Darlene Lacey, plenty of creative people contributed small pieces to the success of Capcom's DuckTales. While Barks himself might have been a dreamer who preferred to work solo, his stories inspired plenty of others to come together and create something magical. So the moral of this story? The most important treasure is dream and friends.